Oye, azúcar para ti, mamita, pa' que lo baile suavecito, así.
Hello, hello, hi everybody. So welcome to Andrea's Dance World. So today I have my third guest, and my third guest is my very first female, and I am so excited. This lady has made the most amazing contribution to the Cuban scene. She is a dance teacher, choreographer, director, a holistic trainer in dance as well. She's going to explain a lot more about that. So she's an innovator, absolutely a very interesting person, and I really want to get to know a lot more about her. So with that being said, I want to introduce my very first guest, and that is Kerry Ribchester. Hello, Kerry.
Wow, I'm totally honoured to be here, and that's probably the most lovely introduction I've ever had in my life, so thank you.
No, you're welcome. I wanted to get to know a little bit more about your background before salsa, and I wanted to know where in the UK you're from. I wanted to know a little bit more about your childhood, and also, do you have any recollections of how you got, was there any recollections of maybe inkling of Latin music or salsa before you knew what it was?
Okay, so I was born in Manchester, and my mum said I was obsessed with music and dance on the telly, so when I was 3, I used to go and get the lead from the kettle and pretend to sing into it and sing my heart out to it. So my grandmother said she needs to go to dance classes. So at 3, my grandmother took me to dance classes. My dad was a jazz singer and my mum played piano by heart. And
Wow.
So I grew up in a very musical family. And my dad was, I would say he's a cross between Frank Sinatra and Les Dawson. He's like funny and charismatic. And I was really inspired by his choice of music, which was like, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, the Rolling Stones. And then my mum was into classical music, Debussy, which I absolutely love. But it wasn't my music. And I kept thinking, when am I going to come across some music that's really mine? And then if you go forward, when I'm like 20, I'm in America, and I'm in a probably a salsa club for the first time. And I see this guy dancing. There's all these guys dancing like Michael Jackson style. And then there's this guy that's like moving in 3 dimensions with these big green eyes. And I was like, wow, how come he looks so good? And he was Brazilian.
Brazilian.
And because I was checking him out, he came and asked me to dance. And I fell in love with a Brazilian in New York that night. He's got me doing all these moves and twirling my pelvis around. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
What were you doing in New York, sorry?
I was teaching music in America, and I was teaching singing and music in America.
Wow.
And I met him just opposite the Juilliard in a club there.
Wow.
And so he came to visit me in England, and he brought me like 20 albums as a present. So I really got into Latin music, and then I was like, this is my music. I'm really in love with it. So it was the bossa nova that captured me first. But I do remember, I just said earlier, that my dad picked me up from Bretton Hall when I was at university and drove me to Manchester to see Los Van Van at Band on the Wall.
My goodness.
And this was like when I was 21, so a very long time ago now. And I just remember being in ecstasy, being with my dad, because he was a jazz singer, having his attention, being around this huge orchestra. I'd never heard a band so tight. I'd never heard musicians play.
But at that
such
point,
accuracy.
you didn't know it was salsa.
But I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until years later when they were doing a residency in Ronnie Scott's, and I went down there and I was like, wow.
Okay.
But the first time I was in Cuba, and I heard, I was at Salsa Palacio, and I heard Kerry play, and I was like, this is like another level.
I remember seeing Kerry, they're amazing.
Yeah. And Enhe La Banda, when I saw Enhe La Banda, I was just like shivering with the music. It was really, and I thought, this is it, this is my music. This is what feels amazing to me. So I fell in love with Brazilian and Cuban music, and thank God for Brazilian and Cuban music, yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your, I know that you've actually got quite a few awards. You've got awards, and I want to know also about your dance qualifications, because I know that I think you went to Laban, all
Yeah, I
these
went to Laban.
places. So I'm quite curious about that as well. And also, I know that you also teach some other techniques as well. So tell me about those.
I did a degree in music and dance, and because I'd met this Brazilian guy, I wanted to understand how come Latinos dance in this different way. I couldn't explain it. So when I went to Laban, I got really into movement analysis. And then it was like really clear to me when I finished my postgrad at Laban, I want to go to Brazil. And then I want to go and discover, I want to find out, I want to come back to England, and I want to dance like these Brazilians.
So where in Brazil did you go to study?
So what happened was I was invited to raise money for the Lisa Ullman Travelling Scholarship. And I ended up telling them, oh my God, my dream is to go, just like you do, my dream is to go to Brazil, I want to do this. And they said, oh, we've got a place in Sao Paulo that's been open. Somebody, a very famous dancer called Maria Duchenes, who had been interned with Laban in the war in England and had danced with him in his company. And she was in Sao Paulo analysing Brazilian movement. I was like, oh, wow. So I had a few interviews. I remember there was a stiff competition because there was like the daughter of one of the judges who also applied in the waiting room. But I went in there and I want to do this, I want to do this, and this music and this dance, forró, lambada, capoeira. I knew what I wanted to do, so I won the award. Beryl Gray, the famous ballet dancer, presented it to me in Covent Garden. And then I went to Brazil on a one-way ticket because I didn't have the money to come back.
And did you fly with Varig Airlines?
I can't remember now. I do remember sitting on the plane though, sitting next to a guy who was going out there to mash up the rainforest. And,
oh my goodness.
And I remember getting in an argument on the plane.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember going to Brazil thinking, everybody I love is in England and I haven't got a ticket back, but this feels right. And when I arrived in Brazil, I felt like I'd arrived in home. I mean, at that time, my dad had lived in Sri Lanka and I'd visited my dad in Sri Lanka. My dad had lived in Portugal. I'd been to Italy, but I'd never felt at home. I always felt like I was in a foreign country. But the minute I arrived in Brazil, I felt like this is my...
You felt home.
I felt the people are so warm and friendly and kind, and although it's crazy, you can be killed 1 minute, and I was nearly killed about 4 or 5 times when I was there. I got badly attacked with a machete, but it was still one of the best years of my life, without a doubt. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So, and also, tell me about your awards, because I know that you've won some Lucas Awards.
Yeah, yeah. The first award I won was in Cuba. I won an award with Quemanda, which was all the women being empowered. So Tania Pantoja was singing about women being in charge. Que manda nosotros, estás cayendo tu pantalones, you're losing your trousers, mate, fix your belt. And I was so inspired by her power. I was like, right, I'm going to make a video for you. And the money I would use on for my brochures, my Key to Cuba brochures, I'm going to save up and use all of that and make a video. So yeah, I ended up making a video with her. And I've forgotten the beginning of the question now.
Yes, I was just asking your awards, because I know that
my
you won
awards.
a few awards. I think the Salsa, you won a Salsa UK award as well.
Oh yeah, I won.
I'm reminding you now.
Thank you, yeah. Okay, so I won an award in Cuba with Quemanda, voted for by the Cuban women. And then they took it off me because they didn't realise I wasn't Cuban. So
oh, wow.
I lost that award. Then
Seriously?
I won the best salsa teacher at the British Congress.
And that was with Paul Young.
Paul Young,
Paul
yeah.
Young, Salsa UK.
And then when I taught for GB Sex up in Manchester, they asked everybody to rate the teachers, and I got 2 years in a row, even though it was like more of a on-two place, and I was the only Cuban teacher at one of them. Yeah, so I won that award, and then I made Mi Mantengo with Los Van Van, and that was really precious to my heart. And when Van Van came here, we were presented with the Lucas Award when they performed in, where was it? They were in Brixton, yeah. So we got that award there. And then I made a video with Alexandra Abreu, Al Fin de la Vida.
Yeah, I love that song.
And raised some money because a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, who was a writer, Simon Garverin, died, and he was always getting me to promote Cuban music. He took me to Paris and had me interviewing Charanga Habanera for him, and he really wanted to support Cuban musicians. So in his name, we raised money. And that money that was sitting in my bank account, when I went to go and take it out to go to Cuba to make the videos, it got stopped. So I had to contact Rob Miller at Cuban Solidarity because it was to do with the embargo.
Okay.
So I went to Cuba to make the video, and I had no money. And I had no money to pay the dancers, the camera crew, and everybody just said, okay, let's just make it. It was amazing. And I had my fabulous manager, Angela, break into my house, get my new card when the money eventually 6 weeks later was sent back. So for 6 weeks in Cuba, we rehearsed, and I paid everybody on the last day. But I remember working with Michael Fonts and him saying to me, Kerry, I'm doing this because I love it. You don't need to pay me. And I was like, no, we've raised the money. We want to pay everybody what you deserve. But he said, if you haven't got it, it doesn't matter. And with that spirit, we won the Lucas Award in Cuba.
Wow, that's amazing.
I was so shocked.
I'm going to give you a clap. Well done. And but what I actually wanted to ask you is, you've won quite a few awards, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want to know which one. It's probably obvious, but which one meant the most to you?
Ooh. Well, when I was in Cuba at the awards ceremony, I had these like Diamante shoes on that I bought from TK Maxx that were like 250 quid, reduced to 40 quid, whatever. Okay. And I couldn't walk in them. And I didn't think I would have to because I did not think I would win. And I didn't have any speech prepared. And I was sitting with my partner, and when they announced the award, I didn't hear it properly. And all I know is my arm got wrenched out. And I was like, what is it? And he said, you've won. And on the camera, you can see me going, you must be joking, right? And then I go, what do I say? This theatre has got like 5,000 people in it. It's not till you get on stage, as well as being televised. There's like, you just look up and it just carries on. And he said, tell them you're English. I was like, okay. So I now got to make a speech in front of 5,000 Cubans and on TV, and I've not rehearsed my Spanish. So I just said, Cuba is amazing, your talent's amazing, and I'm English. And as soon as I said I was English, there was this big roar because he couldn't believe I was English making the video. Yeah. And then for the rest of the night, the comedian came on and kept saying, I'm English, so we'd get a roar. But that night was just magic to win that award. And it wasn't my award, it was Alexander's, it's Michael Fonts, it's Osvadi, it's everybody who was involved with the production, Alejandro Valera, Granado on the camera. We were like a beautiful team working together. And so, yeah, that was such a magical night. And then I was so excited winning the award, and we went back to my friend's house to party. And as I got out of the car, I dropped the award and it smashed into about 50 pieces. And I was like, ooh. But yeah, it's at home in my house. And every week not every week, but every now and again I get out the glue and I try to get it back together. But yeah, it's not the award, it's the fact that Cuban people voted for it. That for me
meant a lot. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. So how did you discover salsa?
And when I came back from Brazil, I really missed not having Latin music and dance. I was used to going to the Gafieira every week. And the Carrinhos and the whole atmosphere of Brazil was like this huge missing in my life. And my teacher, Dongo Monteiro, he came over from Brazil to work with me. And we opened up a Brazilian festival. And at the festival...
What year was this, sorry?
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
1987, 83, 86, it's 88, 1988. We met all the Brazilians, the guys that were doing the capoeira, the sambistas, innocents, and we brought everyone. We went to Rene Lee at Highbury Roundhouse and said, we want to do a Brazilian festival. And he said, okay, go away and write up what you want to do. And if I like it, we'll do it. So that weekend, I remember sitting on a wall in South London in the sun, writing out this dream festival. and Dongo bringing me like cups of tea, and then he would like interject a few ideas, and then we took it to Rennie Lee on Monday morning, and he was like, I didn't expect you to be this soon. And he said, right, let's do it. So we did a Brazilian festival, and it was a massive success. And then we did a Brazilian party in Holloway Road. And my ex-boyfriend was a graphic designer, and he designed this amazing poster. And while I was rehearsing with my dancers, like you have your company, I had my company. So I just went out to the front door to look, and the whole of Holloway Road was full of people lined up to come into the club. I was like, oh my God.
And this is your very first
This
party?
is our first Brazilian party. So I perform on stage. I had a really terrible dress problem. I was dancing lambada with a guy with a top on, and as I leaned back, the crowd screamed, and I thought I must have done a good dip, but my boob popped out.
No.
Hysterical. So that
You popped
party,
it back in.
I'll never forget that one. And then I came off stage, and Renee gave me a plastic bag full of money, and said, Kerry, go into the toilet and put all the money in envelopes, and let's pay everyone now as they come off stage. So we had these capoeiristas throwing each other off the stage, and we had amazing artists working. And as they came off stage, I would pay them. And then we went back to Rene's house that night, me, him, and his wife, and we just emptied the bag of money. And I went and bought a car the next day.
Wow.
So it's like, oh my God, people love this. So Rennie said we should open a club. And I said, okay, well, what if we open a club and nobody knows how to dance lambada? We need to teach them beforehand. We need classes. He said, oh, that's a good idea. And then he said to me, he knew Daniela Robinson, who was teaching with Nelson Batista.
Nelson Batista.
Yeah,
okay.
in Highbury Roundhouse. And so she had met, because I called Daniela and I said, I'm going to be speaking about you, because for me, her and Nelson were the first people that I met who were teaching salsa. Okay. But she told me that Shumara was teaching before her. Okay. But we invited them to come and teach for us.
So sorry, can I stop you there? So are you saying from the recollection then that, because I really want to put the pieces together of the history. So Ziamara was actually teaching before Nelson?
Well, Nelson and Daniela taught together at the beginning. Yeah. So Daniela told me that Shumara was teaching before, but I don't think she was teaching in a club. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I think she was teaching, and Daniela and Nelson were teaching classes in Highbury Roundhouse. And then they came to teach at Club Brazil. So at Club Brazil, we had Brazilian classes, and then we had salsa classes, and then we had one room that was Brazilian. Well, we had one room that was Brazilian and salsa. So we were dancing lambada and salsa. And the next room was a brilliant room, a soca room. We had DJ Soca Rebel. I don't know if you're out there, but I remember your music. We had some wild parties, the front room, everyone dancing soca up the walls. Wow. We had Mish Mish was the barman, you know Mish Mish?
Oh my God.
And he would balance a sword on his chin. And he'd be on the bar and he's like, you should be serving drinks, mate. But he was like dancing, shimmering on the bar. It was hysterical. And then Luis Libres was working
Luis Libres of Mr. Bongo.
Mr. Bongo.
Wow.
So when I knew him, he was like, he'd just come off the boat from Brazil, and he was ridiculously handsome. And he was working in the door and working on the coats, and all the women were chasing him. And it was a really exciting time because everyone, this new thing, salsa was new, and lambada was new, and the Latin scene was like the sexiest scene on the planet, and Lewis was the most handsome man in the place. So I used to go into the coat, what's it called, the coat room, and he'd be hiding from women under the coats, and I'd have to pull the coats off him and say, Lewis, take the money and do your job. But we became like a brother and sister, and with Renee as well. We were like a family. And then Zay Indio, he joined us because Renee said we can't run a club Brazil without a Brazilian. Who are we going to work with? So we opened Club Brazil, me, Renee, and Zay. And then Zay brought in Jill, who was brilliant at administration. So the four of us run that club for a long time. And we employed, after a while, Daniela didn't come anymore. She went on to do her music, and she had a band. Okay. And Nelson used to teach, and I used to be like Nelson's assistant. We used
So
to
you
do.
ended up being Nelson's assistant?
Yeah, yeah.
So is that where you
That's where I
learnt
learned salsa.
So before that, you didn't know any salsa?
No, I didn't know any salsa. I'd been to
see.
the Blue Note Club, and I danced with some guy, some salsa steps, but actually being taught. I would stand next to Nelson, do the warm up. Because I'm being a trained dancer, very quickly picked it up, and then I would teach the beginners after a while, and he would teach the advanced.
So you practically learnt on the job, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And at that time, were you aware that you were teaching Cuban salsa?
Well, Nelson was Cuban, so for me, I knew that there was a different salsa because we had Colombians coming in, and they would be doing really fast, fancy footwork.
Yeah.
And I used to like playing with all the footwork with them, but I also used to like dancing with Nelson, and I liking the Cuban style, and I loved the Cuban music. And Nelson used to play some great tracks. There was this one track that we always warmed up to.
Yeah, that's by Juan Luis Guerra, the merengue. Yeah.
When I hear that warm up, I'm back in Club Brazil, and there'd be like 300 of us.
Yeah.
And that's when I started experimenting, because I'd been studying body mind centering, I'd been studying vocal dance, I already had my lab and analysis. I went to Brazil to analyze the movement. So I analysed not just how people dance, but how they hold their babies, how they get on and off buses, how they move from the core. So in Brazil, I really wanted to analyse what makes Latin dancers so special. And then when I was studying in Italy with Patricia Bardi and coming from a holistic point of view, realising that actually you're moving from your heart, you're moving from your lungs. There's 6 fluids in your body. Some people are in their arterial blood and they're like Latin, and some people are in their joints and they're in their synovial fluid. Some people are really sensual and they're dancing with their skin, and some people are like in their bones and sharp, and they'll be looking
that's
like
a really interesting way to that's good analysis. Wow, okay.
So then I was injecting bits of information about the body, and that's when I started doing classes at the place. And what my angle was is, as a movement analyst who's done Laban, who's done body mind centering, and now I've qualified as a Hellowork practitioner, I'm looking at what's going on in this person's body and what do they need to do to feel and move like a Latino from the core of the body. And that's how I started my classes. So although I was teaching salsa, I was really putting people in their body, making them body confident and grounding them. I always can tell when I'm dancing with a guy who has done martial arts, because for me, like in Cuba, the best salsa dancers have not only trained in Afro-Cuban, they've done martial arts. So they're completely grounded, and I can, within 3 seconds, know if someone's done martial arts, because it's like they're Latino. It's like, If you look at like how, if I'm looking at kids dancing capoeira in Brazil or children doing rumba in Cuba, what you see is a beautiful connection from their feet through open ankles, knees to their pelvis. You see that the pelvis, like if you watch the Brazilian footballers, I had to analyse Brazilian footballers, terrible job, right? And they move and they rotate their pelvis because they do samba. The pelvis of a Brazilian footballer can do this. And in the middle of, if that's the front of your pelvis, here there is a cartilage. So when you do samba, you are like rotating. It's quite an unusual movement, but it really makes your pelvis a fluid. So when you see a Brazilian kick a ball, they go into like an S shape. And if I watch British footballers, except for Beckham, I love Beckham, but when you see a British footballer kick the ball, it's more symmetrical. And it's because they have that beautiful connection from their feet to their pelvis. So yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted that the people that I taught stop looking like British dancers and start feeling it and moving from within and connecting with their partner, not just through the shapes of the movement. Anyone can copy a movement, but it's like, how do you connect your heart, your eye contact? How fluid are your arms? Are you making the other person feel special? So yeah, that was kind of my angle on it in my teaching.
So that's going to lead me to salsa from within.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to ask you about Salsa Within, because I remember I was into all styles of salsa when in Birmingham and also in London. And I remember that I had some friends in Brighton,
Right.
and they actually introduced me to your video, and they gave me the video, and that is when I discovered I didn't know who you were until then, but I discovered your video, Salsa Within, and I remember you talking about the shape in the body, and I remember the fantastic video at the end with Carlos Manuel and that amazing song Agua Fria. But I actually wanted to ask you, what made you do that video? Just tell me a bit more about Salsa Within, because for me I'd never seen anything on that like that before, and also I think that was the place where I officially learnt my first Cuban step, which was Ponte del Pied or something.
Oh, Ponte del Pied.
Yes, I think that's where you taught it as well. Yeah.
How a long story short, I was asked to go and make a video in Cuba because someone headhunted me and said I was the best person to bring salsa to the masses on a big commercial video. And I said I wouldn't ever do a video about Cuban salsa unless I'd been to Cuba, because...
Sorry, so this was while you were still working with Nelson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe, was it? It's a long time ago since I made that video. I'm not quite sure. But I said that I didn't want to make a video about Cuban salsa unless I'd been to the country, because obviously I'd lived in Brazil and I'd soaked it all up and I felt confident, but I'd only studied Cuban salsa with Nelson. So I said, I'll only do this video if we go to Cuba. When we came back, there's some technical problems with the footage. I remember I took with me Richard Marcel came with me, and Luis Sangiardi. I met Richard Marcel on the set of Evita, and he was such great fun. He's obviously a fabulous dancer, and we were dancing next to Madonna, and he was always making me laugh when I was nervous, and I thought, he's such a great dancer, I'd like him in my video, so you're great to come to Cuba with us. But we had technical difficulties with that, the camera work, and I had a few issues because the contract I had was on a fax, and they said, this video is ours now, it's not yours. So I had to go and see a lawyer. First time I had to go and see a lawyer. I was more scared of seeing a lawyer than going in front of 2,000 people, but I went to see a lawyer and I put an injunction on that video from happening. And then I said, I'm determined to make a video, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to go back and make another video.
So you had to go back?
I had to go back.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And I saved up, and Charles Wood and I, we put our money together and we made Salsa from Within. And then it became a bestseller at HMV. And
Did it really?
Yeah, when it first came out. And then I couldn't get my hands on a copy, and I never made a penny from that video. I've never had 1 penny from that video. But that's another story.
Okay.
But the main thing was the experience of going to Cuba and making a video and studying the dance. In between those two videos, I had a chance to go back to Cuba and really study, because I realised I didn't know what son was. I didn't know what rumba was. I didn't know what a Diliquino was. So I had some serious backtracking to do. And I remember being in Cuba and this guy saying to me, do you dance son? And I was like, what son? And he just laughed and said, if you can't dance son, you can't dance salsa. And I was like, wow,
I love that.
I really have to do some homework here. So that's what I've been doing since then, 23 years later.
So is this when you became hooked as well? So
yeah.
So before that, you were teaching salsa in London, in the UK.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until you went to Cuba and you discovered all these other dances. Was that the hook?
No, I think every Wednesday night at Club Brazil, I was hooked on salsa. It was like a drug to me. It was like the best night of the week. In the day, I was teaching at an all-girls school. I'm teaching GCSE dance, and I would be absolutely knackered. I've done 5 classes, and then we would set up Club Brazil, and it was such a nightmare. We had to bring in all the sound equipment. We had to put up posters, and then I taught with Nelson, and I taught Lambada, and then we danced all night. And I would get home 2 o'clock in the morning, having carried all the equipment back out, and I'd be falling asleep. Sometimes I slept in my car. I never made it to the house, but it was a total drug for me. It was like the best day of the week where we all came together. There was none of this like, oh, watch them dance. Everyone was just dancing without looking at each other.
I understand that. I remember when I was learning, I started partying in a Latin American restaurant called, I think it was called Los Andes in Birmingham. And the music was mixed. So we had world music. So we had West African music, salsa, Brazilian, samba, reggae, samba, everything. And I remember at that point, there was almost a crux where I almost decided that I loved samba more than salsa. Wow. And I started actually dancing. A lot of people don't know this. I actually started dancing for a samba reggae band in Birmingham called Afro Block. And I wanted to ask you, do you remember that time? Because obviously you were dancing both. Do you remember a time where you were torn or anything like that?
No, I mean,
between the two. When
Dongo was here, we danced like contemporary Brazilian falco mixed with capoeira, with a bit of lambada, and the famous painter Walter Kershaw, he had an exhibition in Salford Art Gallery, and we went up there and we saw these paintings of Brazil, and there was a girl in the painting with the same hair as me, and I had the same colours on as her. So when they came to shoot it, the ITV came to shoot it, and they had me bringing the pictures alive. So I was really into contemporary dance, falco technique. I loved samba, but it took me a year to learn samba in Brazil. I found it, to nail it, it's probably for me the most difficult dance. I don't know if you found it difficult, samba.
Well, to be honest, I was just learning from Brazilians who were coming to the parties. So God knows what I was doing then, now. Yeah. But I was just totally smitten with the music, and I actually ended up, would you believe, choreographing a show at the Mac in Birmingham, which was the story of Fea Negra. Anyway, that's another story. But I actually choreographed that show. But no, I don't remember.
So for me, like, the one thing that distinguishes Brazilian and Cuban is, for me, I love bossa nova. But when I discovered Cuban music, the rumba, the timba, all the different, I mean, I really like ballads as well, bolero. Cuban music is just I've been working with Huey, DJ Huey, and he's invited me this week. My job tomorrow is to listen to all the new music and select Cuban music that I love. Nice. So for me as a musician, there was more to Cuban music than any other music I've heard. I mean, probably because I've not studied many other cultures, but in Brazil there was millions of different dances and music, but Cuban music, I can't even explain it. It's like going to a restaurant and you like every flavour, and it all kind of like melts together. And like, I love the way I explain that Cuban salsa is like a cake, and the first layer is the orishas, which gave birth to the rumba, which gave birth to the son, which gave birth to the salsa, but they don't call it salsa really in Cuba. They call it casino. And then there's the timba mixed in. There's no such thing as timba dancing, it's timba music. But that massive slice of cake, and you can, if I'm out with one of my dancers, when we're out with my Cuba groups, they'll be pushing me to dance Orisha 1 minute, and they'll be pushing me to dance a little bit of rumba. And if that's what's in the music, that's what we'll be doing. Yeah.
Which leads me on to Cuba.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating. I think it's amazing. I want to know more, but Cuba, what a brilliant idea. What a brilliant idea. And I've seen Cuba grow, and I've seen it advertised everywhere, and I think that's one of the first times I actually met you as well, was around Cuba. So tell me more, how did it all start?
How did it happen? So I was approached by a lady in Oxford she asked me to do a workshop in Oxford, and then she said she'd been to Brazil and to Cuba, and she wanted to run a holiday. Would I be the teacher? So I was doing a lot of workshops at the time around the country, and I managed to get like about 30 people who wanted to come. So I had a deal with her that I would teach and I would go for free. And there was a few laws broken on that trip, not of my part, and therefore I was being watched in Cuba to see if I was a professional or not. And then I was invited to run holidays myself. I can't really tell you what I'd love to tell you. It's too...
Is it controversial?
It's too... Not even controversial. It's scary.
Don't worry, that's fine.
But anyway, all I'm going to tell you is I didn't know whether to take on holidays to Cuba. So what I did was I went into the sea, and I didn't know there was a god called Yemaya in the sea, but I wanted a sign. Should I work in Cuba? Should I take this job on? And this beautiful offer. And I didn't know what to do. And I was not allowed to speak to anybody. I was not allowed to ask anyone for advice. I was not allowed to tell anyone what my situation was. So I came out of the sea, and on the sand was this beautiful concha. So I took that as a sign to work in Cuba. And funny enough, the last trip I did in Cuba was my 100th trip. And when we went to the beach, one of the dancers who's a priest came with us, and we did like a blessing and a cleansing at the beach. And he went into the sea with his golden cap on. And as he was in the sea, we saw him move like this. And then he came out of the sea with a big white stone. And he said that, I mean, he didn't pick it up off the ground because we saw his head above the water. But he said that this stone came into his body, and it was a gift for me from Yemaya. So he comes out of the water with this stone, and I'm like, how am I going to take that home? You know, but I did. I snuck it into my hand luggage. And I wonder now, it's like, I didn't know it was going to be my last trip for a while. I didn't know the coronavirus was going to hit. But I think it was kind of Yemaya saying to me, you know, well done, you've done 100. Here's your accolade, or whatever it is. So yeah, I took that as a celebration from Yemaya. There's a sign that this is your 100th trip.
So how many years has Key to Cuba been going?
So I first went out there with Havana Tour, and I worked with Havana Tour, and I worked with Matthew O'Sullivan, who was working with Havana Tour. I think Fidel Castro's sister was the director. And then I went out on my own after 4 or 5 years. And then I worked with Dance Holidays for a while. And then we split company. And I really wanted to do my own thing. And the father of my child, he said to me, Kerry, you can do it by yourself. Open your own company. So I spoke to Angela Johnson, came up with the name Key to Cuba. And I was working in San Francisco with the Hello Work Association, or I think at that time. So I just sent, we didn't have emails then, I just sent letters to everyone saying, look, I'm going to Cuba, not with Dance Holidays, I'm going by myself. I'm going to spend the money on what I want, on the dancers. I'm going to make it my holiday. If you want to come, sign up here. And when I came back, Angela said, Kerry, we've got 38 people, it's happening. I was like, wow. And it was just brilliant to be able to not have to do what anyone else thinks, because I knew Cuba and I'd been there that many times, that I could use the money that I got to invest in having the most amount of dancers possible. And really, I've never been into it for profit. I've always worked as a teacher, or I've worked as a body mind leader for a corporate company. So when I opened Key to Cuba, it was my passion, it was my baby, it was about creating the best holiday possible, going to see the most amazing bands, and not going to the cheap night out where there's just a DJ going. If Los Van Van are playing, we're there. If Alexandra Abreo's playing, we go there.
Actually, that's what I want to know. Tell me what's included in Key to Cuba. There's dance tuition. What is it? What's it comprised of?
It's taken a while to develop.
Yeah.
We listened to people's feedback, what they liked and what they didn't like. So some people just want to do salsa. Other people want to train in rumba. Some people are professional levels. Some people are complete beginners. Some people, one guy came complete beginner and ended up in the advanced class. He was amazing. He was a computer guy, but he'd done martial arts, so he went through. So we work with Raíces Profundas, which is a fabulous company, and it was headed by a real dance legend called Juan de Dios. And I studied with him. He would come into classes, and he would spend like an hour teaching us how to toe heel from the rumba, and then apply the toe heel to the son. So kind of like be great to be taught by a legend like that.
Yeah.
And so we have the classes, and we started off with 21 hours and we cut it to 15 hours.
Is that over a week? 10 days?
Over 10 days,
Okay.
15 hours. And we used to go to the Paradise Beach and then come to Havana, but now we go to a Paradise Beach, but it's in Havana, and then we come into Havana, and then we do the classes, and then I organise things that you wouldn't normally get if you go to Cuba. So if you go to a real bembe, which is...
Bembe means party?
It's a party, but of the Orishas, a celebration of the Santeria. So
that's the meaning in Cuba, because I know that in a lot of other Latin countries they use the word bembe. Does it have, so it can't have the same meaning?
I think in each, like in Brazil, they say fiesta. I remember someone telling me, Kerry, we're going to a fiesta. And I was like, got a bottle of wine. And I got there and everyone's dressed in white and they're doing candomblé and going into trance. And it's like, oh, it's not the party I expected. So that was a fiesta, but I ended up, watching people going in trance, an initiation ceremony. And then in Cuba, you can be at a bembe and you can see like a 91-year-old guy, and some energy enters their body, and the next minute they're dancing Shango, like a 19-year-old. And I wanted to give my clients that experience. So we go to one of my dancers' houses, all their family cook all day. With the money that the clients pay for their food and their entertainment and the dancing, we have a big salsa party after the bembe. And all the locals, all the street come in and we feed the whole street. And what's lovely is we introduce each Orisha. So it's a long story to explain this, but we raised money for Rises Profundas to have these amazing costumes. So they come out and they perform Oya, Shango, Elegua, all the different gods, and we explain this is the god of fire, the god of war. This is a sweet-talking bastard that chats every woman up. This is the guy that's like looks very, the god of male Cuban beauty. And everybody loves it, and they get like, goosey, and then we all dance Orishas for a while and drink loads of rum, keep going out for more rum, and then we get the driver to have a nice meal and stay an extra hour.
Sounds so good.
The whole street's partying and dancing, So those moments are just real magic. And the other, I'd like to mention Clavihuahuanco and Amado, who's like the godfather of rumba. And he was a big figure to me. He was like, I would see him when I was travelling with the corporate. Well, I would often see him in different parts of Europe, or they were performing at the Royal Festival Hall. And I said to my friend Catherine, oh my God, that's Amado from Clavihuahuanco. And she went and sat down with him in a club in England and found out that they were playing at the Royal Festival Hall and sleeping on somebody's floor. And he'd just lost his wife. So she lived in a big house in Islington, and she invited all of Clavihuahuanco to stay up with her. She fed them. I'd go around and we have big music sessions. So when I went to Cuba, I went to visit Amado in his house and I took loads of photographs. And they were rehearsing the rumba, and it was so amazing. Because in Cuba, the rumba's played in what's called solars. So, somebody can be washing up and they can be playing the clave as they're washing up. Somebody putting up the washing, and they're doing the rumbas in front of the washing. Somebody's playing this, the solar is the place to see rumba. So I asked him if we could bring our groups into his home, and there's like a palm tree in the middle of this courtyard. The whole place is falling down. There's Santeria everywhere. And we arrive in Cadillacs on the Malecon, and then we walk up into Central Havana, and people just love it because it's so nice to be that close to the music. And the heart of salsa is rumba, in it. In that song, Te pone la cabeza mala, they sing and Clavihuahuanco, and then there is a great respect between Amado and Samuel and his dad. There's a lot of love. That's what I love about the Cuban musicians. They all play in each other's band. If I remember going to see Charanga, and there was like 4 different singers in the audience, and they all got up and they just all sang together. I've seen Tania Pantoja get up and sing with Alexander Abreu, and she's been improvising jazz, and he's got his trumpet out, and there's so much love between them. And Samuel will just get up and play with Michael Blanco or Alexander, and that generosity of spirit, you know that you're seeing, you know, like when Michael Fonts goes to Cuba, and we've got my group there, we're all at the front watching him, and he gets up, and it's just, for me, it's better than seeing Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, seeing them dance. Yeah.
So you can experience all of this on Cuba. Do you know what? I've never been to Cuba, and yes, it's the truth, and I definitely will try my best to go on your next trip.
Please, yeah.
2021, God willing.
Yeah.
2021.
I've got some new ideas. I want us to go to this beautiful island and get rid of the coronavirus and chill out and do Kundalini yoga and mix Kundalini yoga with orishas and really get in the body.
Interesting.
And then go to Havana and dance our socks off to the best live music. So that's my new idea.
I'm jealous. Very jealous. I watch all these videos of you with amazing artists, Havana de Primera, Alexander Abreu, Los Van Van, all of these guys. How did all of this come about?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not in the video with him. I'm behind the camera. I'm directing.
But you've met them, you're directing all of that. I'm jealous.
Okay, so, you know, I'm a Hello Work practitioner and I work with the body. So my friend, Katrin Voss, she was friends with the violinist Pedrito Fajardo. And when she was with Pedrito, with Van Van, they found out that Samuel couldn't play because he damaged his thumb. And she said, don't worry, my friend Kerry can fix that. And he kind of thought, whatever. And we went to the recording studio and she said, this is Kerry. And he was like, oh, nice to meet you. Didn't really think I could do anything. So then she took me to his house and we were in his house. And when I went in, this like security bodyguard friend said, you can only work with his thumb because like we need him to play. And I was like, the problem's starting in his neck. I can see that the problem is coming from the vertebrae in the neck. It's squashing the nerve here and it's coming down here. And he goes, no, you can't touch his neck. You can only touch his hand. I was like, okay. So he comes in and he goes, can you help me? My neck's killing me as well. I was like, yeah. So I did one side of him. And by the time I'd finished, the shoulder had dropped, his neck had lengthened, the stress in his face again, his eye opened up. And he looked in the mirror and he was like, oh my God. So we ran into the group. You know, Roberton was there in the house. It was a rainy day in Havana. And Roberton started to sit down and compose a song about raining in Havana. It was amazing. And he was singing to me in Cat as I was doing body work on Samuel. Roberton was singing to us and improvising with these songs. So it was amazing. And so I fixed his thumb and it meant that the concert could go ahead that night. Fabulous. So I took my group to Casa Musica in Galliano. Fabulous. Love to be on the right-hand side. And then he dedicated a song to me, Kerry. It was like the whole of Havana was jealous then. And it was like, well, they were playing because I'd helped him with his thumb. And then my brother came to Cuba with me and he loved Van Van. And my brother invented masks and he made T-shirts for them and he made all their merchandise. So I got to know them that way. And then I made the video with Bamboleo because I didn't even dream I could make a video with Van Van. And when Samuel was in Camden and they were performing at the Roundhouse, he said to me, hey, Kerry, why did you make a video with Bamboleo and not us? And I went, oh, can I make a video with you? And he said, which song do you want? And I said, Mi Mantengo.
Wow.
I've got Mi Mantengo. And he said, okay, you got it. When do you want to do it? So I made Mi Mantengo, and that went really well. And I have to say, working with Samuel and Van Van, they really trust me and I trust them. I'd known them a long time. And I said to Samuel, I have this vision of you playing above Havana. And the music, Mi Mantengo, means this is how you stay fit, you stay healthy, you keep your swing because you're dancing and singing. And I said, I have this vision of you playing the drums on the top of Havana and the birds not arriving on your shoulders, like what happened with Fidel. The birds fly away free. And he's like, oh, wow, that sounds good. And he loved it. He loved all the ideas. And there was no like, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then I said, to Samuel, I really want to film in front of the Capitolio, you know? And
what's the Capitolio? Sorry.
Capitolio, you know, like in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
there's the Capitolio, Capitol Hill.
Okay.
Well, there is one in Cuba, but it's just 1 inch bigger than the American one. Anyway, so I wanted to create this video that was 360 degrees of the Capitolio, the life that goes on and how the music helps everyone get on with their work and stuff. And so we were on the rooftop with the Capitolio in behind, and I'd asked Chucho to bring me 12 white doves. And he turned up with 12 dirty pigeons, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to get my dream here. So then each one of the vans gets hold of the birds, and we're having to rehearse. We've only got one shot at this, and they're making like jokey comments about me being attracted to Samuel and birds and all kinds of weird stuff. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys, concentrate. I've got to get my shot. So with all this joking going on, I didn't think we would get it. So we counted it in 3, 2, 1. And they threw the birds into shot, these dirty pigeons. And when they opened their arms, they were all white underneath. And I got the exact shot that I wanted. And Samuel just went up with his arms. It's a great moment in the video. And that was just magic. So from there, I got respect. I was saying to you earlier that the next day when I won the award for Mi Mantengo and I went to the airport, everybody in the airport was like, nice one, Kerry. And do you want an upgrade? And you know, it was respect from then on, because before that, being a woman and working in Cuba,
must have been difficult.
Yeah, not taken seriously at the beginning. Yeah.
And Alexander Brew.
Oh yes, so Alexander. How did I meet Alexander?
That's
a story.
Amazing.
When my friend died, Simon Gavron, we wanted to use the money to support a band, and I was thinking, I could work with Charanga or I could work with Alexander. Let's listen to the music. And when I listened to Charanga's music, it was all about shake your booty, baby, and let's get on. And I was like, there's nothing there really grabbing me. Whereas when I listened to Alexander's music, there's amazing messages in it. So I went to see both of them, and David Calzado stood me up, and it didn't go well. He made an arrangement to meet me and he didn't turn up. And then I went to see Alexander, and he showed me this poem that he'd written, El Fin de la Vida, from a poem.
Wow.
And it was all about helping the people, like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth doesn't work. So everyone was saying, work with Charanga, you'll be, you know, Cuba will go up. And I was like, oh no, Alexander's caught my heart. And at that time, he was very well known and respected in Cuba because he's been a fabulous musician, but he wasn't that internationally well known.
No.
And he hadn't got a video at that time. So this was his first video. Although the guys that I was working with made Passaporti and released it before I released El Fin de la Vida. Because I take my time. One of my little secrets of my videos is that I do a shoot, and I shoot as much as I can. And then I spend possibly up to 3 months looking at it. What's missing? What does it need? What's the story it needs? What are the shots that would make it complete? And I stew on it, and I go to the gym or I swim, listening to the song, imagining what would really capture the feeling and in the meaning of the words. And then I go back and I reshoot, and then that's my formula of making it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that's how you actually met Alexander.
Yeah. I mean, about 20 years ago, I met Michael Blanco and I interviewed him for something. But he was so young and his answers were so short. And I asked him, because everyone was saying to me that he was copying the Vans. And really, he was just making his own way and his own music. And now he's amazing. But I met him at the very beginning of his career. And then one day I was interviewing him for something, and he said, Kerry, haven't you got a song or a track or a video that we could work together? And I said, actually, I have one in my hand that I was going to do with someone else, but they can't do it. Do you want to do it with me? And he said, what's it about? And I said, I really want to celebrate Cuban women, their sensuality and their power, and how Cuban women will just show off and love their body, love their movement. I once asked Ilda Lydia, what's the difference between sexual and sensual in movement? And she said, when I'm dancing, I'm enjoying the feeling of my body moving, and that's what's sensual. I'm not doing it to please someone else. So I wanted to put that into a video called Mirror Me, and I wanted to present it to Kylie Minogue, funny enough. I wanted to say, because I had been teaching Kylie, I'd done some classes with Kylie. So I wanted to give her an idea of working with me and with Michael Blanco. But yeah, that didn't happen. But I worked with somebody who's just so lovely to work with. I kind of got my dream team for that event. So I had Michael Fonts come in. He flew in to take the main lead, and I had this vision of him dancing on the front of the Malecon. And when we were looking through the camera, the wall was really dirty. So I just pulled the camera up so you hardly see any walls. It looks like he's almost dancing on the sea with the sky.
I've seen that video.
I love that shot. And then I got Eunice Farry.
Yes, I've seen
Eunice, who is
amazing.
Eunice, I love her. She's
the
just
elastic woman.
She is Cuban sensuality and power, the epitome of it. So she came over and played that part. And then Michael Fonts, in the middle of the shoot, was working with another really famous video director and couldn't make it to the last shot. So I had to I had Michael Blanco, the whole of Michael's orchestra, all my dancers and my clients in this club. And I suddenly had to rechange the storyline, and I had a bit of a breakdown, and I went to the front of the club and got a Cuba Libre and put my feet up thinking, what am I going to do? I haven't got Michael Fonts. How am I going to finish the story now? My story's screwed. And then I come up with the idea of make it just about her and make it a dream sequence. So then that night we had to go and shoot her waking up, and the whole thing had been a dream, and then it made sense. So yeah. So that's how I got to work with Michael Blanco and Eunice Farry and Michael Fonts. My dream was to work with Michael Fonts, and again, I didn't dream that I could work with him. And I met him at Salsa Explosion with Enrique and Rob's gig, and he came up to me and he said, I love me Mantengo. When you're ready for me, I'm like, ready for you.
Wow.
What are we doing? Let's do it.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's get into this. I did a post probably a few months ago regarding one of my true stories was about I was dancing with an on-two dancer. However, I want to say that whether I've been dancing with someone who's an on-two dancer or on-one dancer, crossbody lead, but I was dancing with this person and he enjoyed the dance, I assume, because he wanted to dance again to the next song. However, the next song that came on was a Cuban song, and most of the time it's been a song that has a timber influence in it. And he then just said, oh, let's dance to another song. I've experienced this numerous times, and it's always fascinated me why crossbody lead dancers, on-two dancers, don't want to dance to a Cuban song. And what's your views on this?
Wow. I'm not an on-two dancer, so I can't speak for them. But I do know that the Cuban timber music has got a massive rumba influence in it. So some people love those multi-rhythms. Like today I was teaching in a school and the secretary came in because she heard the rumba, and she didn't even know it was Cuban. But, some people gravitate naturally to that, what I call layered rhythms. So if you're listening to timber and you've got so much percussion, you've got two pianos playing percussion, you've got all the congas going, you've got for me, the sound, it's like a very, very rich soundscape. For me, it's like listening to Beethoven's orchestra. There's that, and there's probably been more rhythms going on. So for some people, they want to dance onto, they want to count rather than feel. And it's more difficult for them. I remember dancing with an on-two dancer, and he said, can you dance on two, Kerry? And I said, well, I'll just dance on, I'll feel it. And as I was dancing with him, he lost the rhythm and he went, wait, and he had to count. And when I'm dancing, I just feel that fourth beat. I feel it in my heart. Yeah. I either go with the clave or I go with the fourth beat of the music. So I think for some people, timber music is an acquired taste.
But do you know what? Even with timber songs that I know, that they do have a section where it's got son montuno.
Yeah.
Some even have a section where they're playing some Afro rhythms. So I still find I'm fascinated with most songs that I dance to that are Cuban have many different rhythms playing in them. So for me, even though it has a timbre break, if I'm using the right term, forgive me.
Yeah.
It will have a timbre break.
Yeah.
It does actually, normally they will start with a son montuno or something.
Yeah.
Then go into timbre and then break into some Afro rhythm.
Or just get even more crazier as it goes along. Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying about timbre being multi-layered. But for me personally, Cuban music's amazing because it has so many different sections that you can interpret in so many different ways. And I'm just curious, as I said, I was just curious for your views on why Cuban music in clubs, that's when all the crossbody lead dancers seem to disappear.
You'll have to ask a crossbody person, but for me, they're missing out because if you listen to like a really good timbre track like Yacer Ramos, you can be playing one rhythm with your shoulders, another with your feet. These crossbody dancers are beautiful dancers, so their body's an instrument. They could be playing with the different rhythms of the different instruments. I think it's just an acquired taste. When I first heard Los Van Van, I was listening to Carlos Manuel. Carlos Manuel was more commercial, it was more fun. He had Papito and Freddie dancing with him, all the girls were screaming at him. And, you know, I liked Carlos Manuel more than Van Van. And then I started to listen more to Van Van and I was like, they're, you know. And then when you listen to Alexander Abreu and you know, the timbre bands, I think it's more like, you know, like you have a Cuba Libre and you put a little bit of rum in, but then the next time you want more rum. I'm a bit like that with timbre. The more I get used to it, the more I want, basically. And then the more I can play with as a dancer.
Tell me about Despelote. I've tried to, in the style of dance that I teach and perform, I believe that I'm Afro influenced. So personally, I don't think I used to be recognised as an onto dancer for that reason. And I used to explain to my dancers about Despelote. Could you explain what Despelote is?
I like the word templeque more. Templeque. It's like...
So is templeque the new word instead of...
No, templeque's been around since Carlos Manuel. That the song Agua Fria, I think they sing templeque, templeque. And, oh no, that's in the other video I made with him, Yo Soy Malo. I had all the little kids doing the shimmering. For me, it's like a real celebration of all the rhythms in your body. And to dance Despelote or templeque well, you really have to be in your pelvis because you cannot shake the upper body unless the unless the pelvis is free. So if you want to do it, you have to be in your pelvis and then your upper body can shake. So a lot of people try to do it and don't look quite right because their pelvis is not supporting the movement. And you have to have a really good range of flexion and extension. And a lot of dancers actually have hyperextension. Do you know what that is? No. It's where the tendons actually allow them to go further than they really should go for their own well-being. So hypermobility. So one of the dancers that's like a sister to me, Ilda Lydia, when I was slowed down the video of her moving and her spine was like this snake, but she's got hyperextension. So I'm always having to give her treatments because she's going beyond what she can do. So she's going to look much better dancing Despelote or Templeque than any normal person. And that's another thing I see a lot of dancers showing off how far their legs go. And I just think, you know what, if I had hyperextension, I'd be able to do that as well. And for people to think, oh, to be a good dancer, I have to do the splits, or you don't. To be a good dancer, you just need to feel it, move your spine, move your pelvis, invest in, I think, Afro-Cuban dance. Afro-Cuban dance will give you the Despelote. All the movements of Shango in his pelvis, all the movements of Oya. If you can dance Shango, Oya, Yimaya, Ochun, then your Despelote and Templeque will be so much more authentic. Yeah.
Okay. The current fashion. I must say, I was very happy when I started dancing again, I think 2016, 17, and I saw as a on2 crossbody lead dancer that they were now using Cuban Afro and Cuban moves in crossbody lead on2 style, and I was so happy. I've got to say personally, I remember when I saw one of my favourite dancers, who is Delia Madeira from New York. She used to dance with Yamule, still does guest. I saw her fusing Afro-Cuban moves and Afro moves with on2. I was amazed, and I thought finally that Cuban dance and music is going to get the respect that it deserves. I've actually been fascinated in the last few years to see how people are integrating Afro-Cuban, Cuban, and also son into on2 and crossbody lead. What are your views on it, and do you think it's changed people's views of Cuban dance and music and culture?
Wow, big question, really. When I hear you talking, I'm seeing Michael Fonts, who bridges the gap, because he dances on2, he dances his own style, he does Cuban, but when he gets on stage and the band's playing behind him, the band are playing for him, the drummers are playing for him, and his whole body becomes an orchestra, and he makes it look amazing. He puts his own style on it, and I think when you're a really good dancer, you use anything that you feel fits the music and that fits your body. So if you're an on2 dancer and you can do Cuban, you can do the both, then when a on2 track comes on, you can do on2. If a Cuban track comes, you can flip to the Cuban, and you can do what you feel, what comes natural, and create your own style. I think that's great if people can do that. There's some obviously, if I analyse on2, it's more like ballet to me. The technique, the use of weight is not like Afro-Cuban. Afro-Cuban, the weight drops down to come up. So if like I'm playing Beethoven on the piano and I go down heavy, I come up light. So Cuban movement comes up light from dropping down heavy, whereas on2 style for me is very much like ballet, lift, ballroom almost, and very fast and slick with beautiful lines. And so they're quite different styles. So to swap from them, I'd really love to see someone go from sharp, fast, on2 to three-dimensional Afro-Cuban. That must be quite an amazing thing to see.
You see, I actually have a view on that. It's a conversation that I have a lot with on2 dancers, and especially when we got into there was a time, I don't know if it was the kind of middle 2000, where everyone was dancing to mambo music.
Right.
Mambo music, as in New York mambo.
Yeah.
And everyone was dancing what I would say is typical mambo or on2. It fascinated me because still in those songs, we had the artist still singing about Afro-Cuban rhythms. Still, one of my favourite songs is by Che Feliciano, which is called Nina. Do you know the song Nina?
No.
Okay, and that is all about a bembe.
Oh yeah.
And practicing Santeria. I've actually done a choreo to it, but there's many songs from the 50s, 60s that are mambo songs. But if you listen to the words, they're actually singing about orishas as well. So, and they're playing all these different rhythms. So I find it interesting how people think you only dance on2 to it, but you still don't interpret the music. So I have a different view on that. It's really, maybe one day we can sit down together and listen to these songs for you to see how, maybe as you said, we would dance to it. Because for me, yes, maybe one part is dancing on2, but when it changes to these different rhythms, for me it's Afro still.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but maybe we need to get together.
I think if you think about the Cuban musicians that went to America,
exactly,
and in the top bands, the Cuban musicians were highly trained. Cuban musicians are trained at the university, and then they've got all their experience of improvising. So like Frank Sinatra went to Cuba, stole loads of the Cuban musicians, and then when you hear him playing tracks like Mac the Knife, or you hear that song "Love Is All That I Can Give to You," Nat King Cole, that's son. It's pure son rhythm. So a lot of the musicians creating salsa in New York. I remember being at Copacabanas maybe 25 years ago. I ended up funny. Do you want to hear the story? It's quite a funny story. I was working, my first job, corporate job in America, was with Allied the Mech, and we had this incredibly intensive 3-day training. I was working with them with, you know, being these amazing businessmen and walking their talk, and I was working with Dr. Bart Sale, and it was just one of the most amazing experiences in my life. And at the end, we were all in a circle, and I said, "Look, guys, if any of you want to go dancing salsa, this is my first time in New York for a long time, who would like to come to Copacabanas with me?" And they just looked at me in shock because they owned Copacabanas. And the guy, Lewis, who was the manager or the owner of Copacabanas, was there, and he was like, "Hey, it's my birthday tonight, we're all going." So they got all these limos and took us to Copacabanas. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." We got an area, we got tequila, we got champagne. And then I went to ask a guy to dance with my English accent. And he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from England. Would you like to dance?" And he went, "Oh no." It took me ages to get a dance. And then it turns out my New Zealand boyfriend that I'd been living with for about 5 years, turns out that his parents were ballroom dancers. And he'd never told me because I might drag him on the dance floor. But after about half a bottle of tequila, he took me on the dance floor and spun me round. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could dance." And then after the local dancers saw me dancing, that was it. I was on the floor all night dancing, yeah. But, you know, I loved Angel Ortiz. Sadly, he passed away, but he came to stay with me, and we presented a class together at Puntings about the relationship between on two and son. And we rehearsed in my house, and we just had such a great week. He came for a whole week, stayed at mine, and we just chatted, and we presented a class at Pontins. I got a lot of flack for it because I said, "You know, you crossbody people, you stole the Dilikino and put it on a straight line and called it the crossbody." And I got so much flack for that. Like, you know, who does she think she is saying things like this? But it was because we'd worked together, and we were dancing son and he was dancing on two. We were showing that it was the same rhythm. It was a lovely exchange, actually.
You're a white woman who has been, I think, for about the last 25 years, teaching, choreographing, directing, Afro-Cuban, Cuban music, dance. 2020 has been, well, since June, to be honest, it's been a very interesting time with the Black Lives Movement.
Yeah.
Also George Floyd.
Yeah.
What's been your experience really with your family and friends with all of this? Have you had any interesting conversations?
Oh yeah, my first conversation was with DJ Huey, and you know, we were both appalled at what happened in America, and in one way it's good because it's brought it up to the surface. It's been bubbling along. We need to be talking about this. Black lives do matter, and although all lives matter, at the moment Black lives matter more because we need to stamp out racism in every corner, and it's still around in every country I've ever been, in any job I've ever been. I've been aware of racism, and yeah, I think my friends, my family, my you know, the people that I know and that I hang out with, they're all appalled at what's happened. And it's a shame that on Facebook it's got quite aggressive. It's like people need to be educated and stand up, that they're, you know, you're more likely to die in America if you're black, or even in England you're more likely to be arrested. It should not be like that. So yeah, that's my feeling about it. Yeah.
I want to lead on to racism in Cuba. I could imagine that it's quite different to racism. I want to ask, have you seen, how do you compare the difference with racism in Cuba to racism in the UK?
Well, I'm not black, so I don't suffer that racism, and I see what I see. I hear what I hear from my black friends, my black female friends. So in Cuba, I remember filming and the cameraman being fed up with me. He's like, Kerry, you've not got any white dancers in the film. Why don't you ever work with white dancers? And to be honest, it wasn't that I don't see colour. It was like I chose my dancers for their technique, not their colour. But when you're lighting dancers, he wanted to have white dancers. And I was like, I'll never choose dancers just for their colour. I choose dancers for their charisma and their dancing. And it just so happens that all my dancers are black or mixed race, which Cuba is, you know. And Cuba's fantastic in celebrating the Afro-Cuban heritage in their music, in their dance. Raíces Profundas, who I work with, are predominantly black company, but they still welcome white dancers and European dancers in. But I think in Cuba they do celebrate the culture more, whereas in England, I don't see us celebrating the Afro-Cuban dance is coming up. A lot of people in the Salsa scene are loving it and embracing it. But I don't know if they realise the racism that people suffer.
What about colorism in Cuba? Is that a problem?
I think that colorism and racism is generic throughout the world. We've got so much healing to do. It's almost, you know, slavery was only abolished like 130 years ago, 140 years ago. So I think we've got a lot of healing to do. It's in our DNA, the trauma that's gone on. And I think in Cuba, they're very cathartic with the music, the dancing. It expels a lot of trauma. Whereas in England, I see we're building up with it and we're not dispersing it. Like, we're not as expressive with what's going on, and it becomes more violent. Whereas in Cuba, I feel like they're more expressive, and you see more people who are black on TV in Cuba. The black musicians totally celebrated and loved. Alexander Abreu is probably the most adored person in Cuba, and he's black. He might as well be president for most people in Cuba. So I think there's less. I'm not saying there's no racism or colorism in Cuba, but I think there's less than there is in the UK. But who am I to say? Because I'm a white woman, I don't have to suffer what Cuban women suffer or black women suffer. I have that privilege because of my colour, which is not, you know, shouldn't in 2020 we shouldn't even be having this conversation. Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree with you. As I asked you before, you're a white woman, so you going to Cuba, directing Cubans of all different shades, dancers, musicians. How were you received? Did you get any backlash?
I had a very big argument with the director of one hotel. He was Spanish, and he was racist, and we were in a 5-star hotel, and my dancers looked beautiful. They were in the bar waiting for everyone to come down. Everyone was dressed immaculately. My Cuban dancers, well, Cuban people, they dress like better than the Europeans. And we were in the bar and we were having such a lovely time. And then we went off to another hotel around Cuba. And when we came back, we were not allowed back in the hotel. And I got a letter saying that I had Cubans, black Cubans, in the hotel behaving like black Cubans. This is like many years ago now. This is like 20 years ago. And that we weren't allowed anymore to go into the hotel. And I was like, look at this racism. It's in but I think it was a Spanish director. It wasn't a Cuban director. And I never ever went back to that hotel again. Yeah.
Are you ready for rapid fire?
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about 8-10 questions, and I just want a quick answer just like that.
Okay. Brilliant.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Liked or respected?
Loved.
Trump or Biden?
Oh, neither.
Neither?
No.
Okay. Favourite song to get you on the dance floor?
Mi mantengo.
Havana or Santiago de Cuba?
Havana.
Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook.
Mask or bandana? Bufanda.
You mean to cover yourself? My brother's mask. My brother invented the global travel mask. My brother's mask.
Shower or bath?
Bath.
Salsa in the 2000s or salsa now?
Oh. Yeah. Salsa in the 2000s.
BBC or ITV?
BBC. Well, no, neither. Netflix.
Thank you. That was rapid fire.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had no idea that was coming at all. I thought it was like, what's my favourite food or something, but no. You surprised me. Yeah.
Kerry, I see you as someone who has been an amazing cultural ambassador for Cuba, Cuban music, and Cuban dance. This might be a bit of a tricky question to ask you, but at the same time as you doing all of these things, I kind of have this kind of recollection of, I don't know how, but there's a little bit of negativity with what you do. I cannot see any reason, because in all the time I've heard your name, I heard of you or things that you've done, I don't have any negativity, but there is something.
What kind of negativity have you heard?
I cannot put something in words. I can only say, I cannot remember, but I know there's something there. That there's some kind of resentment with what you're doing, whether it's jealousy or something.
Resentment by people or teachers or anyone in particular?
I couldn't even name names, but I know there's been something that I remember. And I wanted to know, because many people could view what you do as cultural appropriation. How do you feel about this? Have you had any kind of backlash?
I've had backlash. I've suffered quite a bit with my business in terms of, because I do support Cuba, there's Cubans that don't want me to go to Cuba. I've been, with my stand of Key to Cuba at the festival, and I've had somebody say, you shouldn't be taking people to Cuba, you shouldn't be supporting that system. So my feeling is that when I go to Cuba, we help support the Cuban dancers, we support we bring money to Cuba. And some people don't like that I take groups to Cuba. But if they want to take groups to Cuba, they're very welcome. I've had so many people be on my holiday and then copy my holiday, copy my name. I've had so many people train with me and copy what I do. But, they're welcome to do that. And I'm just
that means
grateful.
that you're doing something right.
Well, I'm grateful I've had such lovely experiences in Cuba. I've had access to amazing artists, not because anybody's special. It's just that I've been working with them. Some people are maybe a bit jealous that I have a good relationship with famous artists, but that's because I've been working with them for 23 years and I've been in cars with them when they've been stopped by the police, or it's relationships. I've been teaching, say, at Chisenhale Dance Space and the Place for like 28 years, and then some Cubans come and they say to me, why are you teaching the same place as me? And I think, actually, I was teaching here 15 years before you arrived. So I've kind of backed off a lot about teaching. I love teaching Afro-Cuban with my bodywork technique, but I would never, even though I've been studying it 20 years, I would never teach Afro-Cuban dance without a Cuban dancer. So when I run my classes at the Place, I would invite someone like Alicia Buena, Etienne, I've invited Jana, I've invited many different dancers to work with me. And I do the anatomical side and to support people to get it into their body, and they do the Afro-Cuban side. I would never dream that, even though I spent a week doing Oya in detail, I would never ever teach Afro-Cuban and say I could, because I don't feel that it is really in my body. I'm not Afro-Cuban, so I can see how it's performed. I can see that Oya moves from the lungs, she rotates the wrist. I can see the detail as a movement analyst. But to copy me, I'd rather somebody copy the Cuban person.
Okay.
But, it's a shame that in the salsa world we have so much competition. I understand that when Cuban people come to England, they don't have it easy. Or if you're Brazilian and you come to England, any Latin American person coming to England has got a new language, new culture. Our culture is not particularly friendly and warm. And I think some of the sweetness of the Latin character can be challenged, like it is with us on the rainy days and the pressure. Where am I going with this? I would hate to think that I would take anything from anyone. My whole intention has been to cross cultures, bring people from England to Cuba, and I've taken.
But you have done that because I think you've brought over Spanish.
I did bring over a Spanish. Spanish worked for me, and then he married somebody who was working for me.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
There's many dancers here that have married clients or have got jobs here, and they're like family to me, like Spanish, or Carlos Pacheco, Enrique, Alicia Buena, Jessica, Farah. We're all one big family. That's what I love about the Cuban community when we get together. It's just beautiful energy, and I know that the ones that I've known, the Cubans that I've known from Cuba, accept me because they know I respect their culture, and I promote their culture, and I promote Cuban dance, and I open the way for many Cuban teachers to come. Like since Luanda Pau came, she's amazing. She's her movement, her teaching. I've been to her classes, and I feel like I don't need to do the Afro-Cuban stuff anymore. Because she's doing it. So I've just backed off from teaching now. Yeah.
Kerry, I want to say that it's been a pleasure, especially to listen on the views of a female, because you have done so well, your dance holidays, Cuban culture, music, everything. And it's been a pleasure to listen to your story, and I want to thank you, and I do have a little gift as well that I want to give you. Please don't get too excited, but I do have a little gift, and I want to give that to you.
Oh, what's this? Is it one of your mugs? Wow. Oh, I need mugs. I love it. Andrea's Dance World mugs. I'd just like to say thank you to Andrea for bringing all these issues up, and it's been great for me to get things off my chest and talk about my story, but it's also lovely what you're doing, and through communication we can break down barriers, we can break down racism, we can celebrate our differences, and then I think that's beautiful what you're doing, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, and your name's on the other side as well.
Is it? No, really? Yes. Wow. Right, nobody can drink from this mug. If you visit me, if you come to my house, this is mine. Thank you. Lovely. Wow.
Hiya, and welcome to Andrea's Dance World. So I'm going to share my next true story with you. Okay, so I'm going to get started. So a group of friends and we decided to go to another European city to their first Salsa Congress. There was about 5 of us. Anyway, a really great Congress, definitely amazing for their first Congress. So I think on the second night, we were sitting down talking towards the end of the night. It was very early in the morning, and an international DJ sat with us. We were just talking, having a laugh. All of a sudden, he used the N-word. What? Yes, he used the N-word. Once was fine. Can you believe throughout the time he sat with us, he kept on using the N-word, and then he started to tell jokes about black people. Oh my gosh. I gotta tell you, I was so irritated that it got to the point that I told him that I didn't really like it that he kept on using the N-word, and I found it offensive. Also, I told him that I didn't find his jokes very funny. What actually ensued was a conversation between all of us, and also my friends. They also told him the same, that what he was saying wasn't appropriate. Anyway, his reaction was that he thought that we were overacting, and particularly me, because we actually did get into an argument, and I was so angry at his insensitivity and his arrogance that he thinks that he could sit there with a black person and use the N-word and also tell jokes about black people and it's not offensive. I left. You know what's really amazing? I felt guilty and I felt like a troublemaker. That's what's so stupid, is I felt guilty and like a troublemaker. And I'm going to tell you why I felt guilty, because I'm a teacher, dancer, performer. So at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this going to affect my career? You know, something that I've kind of, every now and again, when certain things happen, I've always worried about that. But I've got to stay true to my convictions. I could not sit there and just laugh at his jokes. I can give someone the N-word pass once only. But if you think you're going to sit in a conversation and carry on saying that, and I'm going to say nothing, and then proceed to go into jokes about black people, it's not happening, not with me. Anyway, I left the table. I must admit, from then, for the rest of the weekend, we didn't speak. And when I bumped into him at any other festival, we never spoke. I don't have time for that. However, what's really interesting is my worry is sometimes standing up for yourself. Is it going to affect your career? What I actually realised was I used to get a phone call from another country about teaching lady styling and Afro movements at their congress. They'd always asked me for my rates, and I believe they contacted me twice, and they said to me, okay, there is a committee, and I had to take it to the committee to decide, and it was between me and another lady. And I remember actually asking who's actually on the committee, and could you believe this international DJ was on the committee? So there was no way I was ever going to get that gig. Anyway, guys, please tell me your thoughts on this one. Do you think I was right to stand up to this person and tell him that what he said was inappropriate, or should I have just kept my mouth shut for the sake of work? Guys, thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning into Andrea's Dance World and my interviews and true stories. Take care, guys. Bye.